Hey everyone, I'm Arthur with Innovative Journaling, and today in this workshop we are going to sew up this book right here, the one we started making last week, and using these signatures, this text block. So let's get started. Go to there. And so what Joelle did for me, I tore all the papers. Joelle end papered them with our tissue back linen, and then she created the punch template and punched all the holes in this for us. So that's great, because that's a lot of work. What did we count that up? Is 9 times 6, 54 holes to punch. And Kara actually cut out the leather for this book, and I don't know who laminated it, but then it got final cut and all marked and punched from this template. So, and this is the template we created last week. Joel just punched all those holes through it this week. And so we're gonna sew this up right now. Now, this takes, let's see, there's 6 signatures, so you need 5 threads for it. And the way we measure our threads, and why do you need 5? You need 5 because one thread, the first thread covers 2 signatures. Now we can sew 2, 2, and 2 if we want, but we're going to sew them all together so they look like this, only it's going to have 2 more signatures on it. So there'll be another whole other X, or 2 more rows of X's. All right. The way you measure your thread is about 1 inch over on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that's it. So about 1 inch over on each side, 6 lengths, and then what you do is to thread the needle on each side. I'm making this book for someone named Christina, who helped me out with some marketing stuff. And so I was grateful for her time, even though she gets paid for it. But I wanted to make her this because she's an avid journaler. So here we are. We've got the thread here and 1 needle on each side of the thread. We're going to start with 2 sections, the first 2, and the way we do that. And for a lot of you, this will just be a review. You see all the holes punched in here, like that? Maybe not. We go in the second hole and then come out of that and out through the top hole. There. So this is what you have. Basically, you've gone in the second and come out the first. Pull that a little bit, and the same thing for the second section. Right here, just like that. In through the second, out through the first. There you have it. And then I put them together, and I match up these 2 so they're even here. And let's push this down just a little bit so I don't have to bend over so much. There. And then what I'm going to do is just pull on this, and that evens, basically it evens up everything. All right, and then we have our holes in the book. Get rid of this. And I'm going to lay this down. Now to make this book, this is the formula we use, the 1/2 inch thing. Look at how perfect that is. See how there's a nice, I put this right on the edge of the holes there, and there's that nice little border, not too much, not too little. And see how there's a little border on top and bottom. This is using our formula. Yeah, well, that's what end papers. What? Oh, yeah. Gina said that she thought it was interesting that we use the end papers only on the front and the rear signature, which is typically what end papers do. If you look at old books, they have that leaf on the front and then a separate leaf on the back. It's usually marbled. If the book's like 100 years old or something, that's exactly how we do it. We put the... What? What is it? The question was, what's the end paper that we use? And the end paper that we use is just the tissue back linen. We get that from LBS. They should be in our supplier guide. And we buy it in 50-yard rolls, and the rolls are about 36 inches wide. So, okay, so here's what I've done as a review. I've taken the threads from the top hole, and I've just matched them up with the 2 holes in the book there. So basically, here's how it is. You see that right there, just like that. And then I'm going to take one of them and just drop it down to the second hole. And I'm going to sew these up pretty fast. If anybody wants me to slow down, it's not a problem. We're just going to use up our time sewing up this book. And so if you wanted me to slow down and explain something, please stop me and ask. Just unmute and ask. Okay, so I went through here, and then I'm going to come down the second hole. You can see like that. What? Oh, how do we attach the end papers? Basically, we'll have an end paper. It lays over about 1/2 inch, comes over and lays over to right about there. And I can show you on this. And then we just use double stick tape, so it stays on there. Now, when I first started doing this, I didn't use any tape or anything, and it was a little more challenging to sew. When we started using the tape, it became a little bit easier, but I had already learned how to do it without the tape, so it didn't matter. But it is easier with the tape. Everything stays together nicely for you. Okay, the second thread right here, it's gonna go in this hole, the second hole, and come out there. I'll show you in there. And you see how I'm looking? I'm just gonna look for the hole right in there. I could see it, and then I'll push through. Comes out that second hole. Pull it taut, not too tight, and then it's going to go back through that hole right there, just like that, and it'll come out right there. Okay, now when you sew a book, tensioning is really important. And if you've never sewn one and you're handling it like this, you got all this stuff flopping around, it feels weird. But after you sew, several, what happens is you just deal with it and you get used to it, and then it's no longer a problem. And you learn how to hold your hands, put your fingers in between the signatures, and there's no right way. There's just your way, whatever works for you. Okay, so we've got this thread from the second signature here. Now we're going to cross over to the first one and go underneath that thread right there. You can see that. And come back. And right there like that. See that? So there's our first X. And then we're going to push it right back through that hole that it came out of. And it's fine. See how I'm just hunting? I can see the holes. I'm just going to hunt around, push it through that hole, pull it out. I like my X's to be parallel. Yours don't have to be. Whatever you like. And then I'm going to drop down one more hole and right to there and push that through, and hopefully it's lined up with the holes and it'll come right through. So there we are, right there. And now I'm going to take this thread, and I don't need it anymore. I'm going to pick up the thread from the other signature, the first one, and now if you want, you can just go over the top or under both of them, but I like to go over the first thread in the direction I'm moving and come out under the second one. So there's that. And then I'll hook around this first thread back there, that fork, a little bit of tension, just taut, and then I'll go back through the same way, over the first thread and under the second one, like that, and come down here. And then I'll go back in this hole and hunt around for that. There we go. See how it is? Same hole I just went in, I'm coming back out of. And there we are. That's what we got, our first X. And now it's the same process all the way down. So I'm going to just drop down one more hole, come out there, and this time I'm just going to, instead of hooking around this, I'm just going to hook around these two. I go under both of them. You see that? Under both. Come back, Go in that hole and back through there. Make sure my thread is parallel. Go back down one hole. Like I said, I'm going to sew these pretty fast. I don't think I'm going to get through the whole book, not in half an hour, because this is more than a half an hour of sewing. But I will take a picture of it for everyone, over the first thread, under the second, and then you can see the result. And I might post that actually as the thumbnail photo on the replay. There we go. Same deal. Taut. So here's what happens. If you pull your thread too tight, all your signatures are going to pinch together. I mean, you'll get creases right in the middle of everything. And for me, I don't like the way that looks. So if you like the way that looks, then go ahead, by all means, just crank on it and pull hard. But for me, it's just like tensioning. And the other thing is, if you forgot this tip, when you pull your thread taut, you want to make sure that you're pulling in the direction that you're sewing. So you're not going to pull up this way. You're going to pull down this way because this is the direction we're sewing in. All right, cross over, hook the other two threads. If you want me to slow down, just say so. I have no problem doing that. But this is a repeatable pattern. So, and if you're new here, and you're afraid to say, hey, Arthur, slow down, then just type it in the chat and Kara will tell me, hey, Arthur, slow down. So, see how I keep flipping the book over, back and forth like this? This is how I handle the book. Oh, and make sure, you might want to make sure that your needle is not facing down when you go through that, because you don't want to scratch up the leather or whatever your material is. Of course, if your material is unscratchable, then it doesn't matter. Right, can't find it. There we go. I'm going to make sure that's parallel. So we have our big Book of Shadows. Now, you can imagine how heavy this paper gets when there's more and more of it. And so when you have a book that's 11 by 14, over and under like that, and you're holding the book up like this, you just can't sew it all in one sitting, because you actually feel, if you did, you'd feel like, well, even if you didn't sew it all, if you sewed part of it, you'd feel like you've just come back from the gym and have worked out your shoulders, because this all takes, some strong shoulders to hold up all those pages and stuff. You can also just sew it and lay it on the table. We have sewn books that are we sewed one book. Hey, Joelle, how big was that really big book we sewed up for that construction company? Remember the really huge one? 24 by 36? That was it. Yeah. It was like 20. There were two sizes. And the big one was, I think, 24 by 36 inches. I mean, it was just like huge. And then they gave us all this printed paper to put in it, and it was very heavy paper, and it was glossy, and oh my gosh. We had to keep that laid on the table and sewn. All right, just continuing on here. So when we get to the next signature, that's where we show you. See, sometimes even I have issues finding the hole. So I just open it up like this, and I look in there, peek in there, and I can see the hole, and there's that. So I guarantee you, any issue you have sewing, any problem you work through sewing, I've had it. I've worked through it. So I've made all the mistakes that anyone could possibly make, I think, in this. So if you make a mistake, don't feel bad, because I've made them all, and I've learned from them, and that's what it's all about. All right, here we are at the end. So we're just going to drop that, but there's the X's coming on, and then over and under, hook underneath both those threads. Now, could we have made a large X, a small X, a large X, a small X? Of course we could. That's what we do in our template here. We pattern it all out. But this is how we sew books. You can, I mean, you guys are going to come up with some really creative stuff, way more than I would think of. Okay, yeah, they wanted to. I got to slow down here. So let's do this last one on here, slower. Um, and then when we connect the other stitches up, I'll show you too. Okay, so here we are. Whenever we come back, we drop down to the next hole like that. So here's what you see. And then now we're at the top. We're going to hook over underneath both of those threads, come back like this, and then we're going to go back through the same hole. And see, just like that. And then I want to make sure my thread is parallel like that, right there. And then for this one now when you sew this way,
You're
check
getting
this.
too close to yourself. We can't see
There
where
it
you're
is.
sewing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Jump in and just say, hey, pay attention, Arthur. Okay, so what I do at the end, now we've got our thread that just came out. So I go from right to left like that, and then I'll pull it through the hole, and then I'll just tighten it up some, and then I'll go left to right and go ahead through the hole again. And that's just my version of a square knot. I don't know if it's an actual square knot. It's my version. But whatever it does is it makes a knot that's tight enough, and then I go under that thread 3 times like this, and now that one is done. So I can cut it and be careful not to cut what you just sewed. Yes, I have done that also. So if you do it, don't feel stupid. I mean, it just, you got to make every mistake you can to become an expert. So, all right, now here we are. We're going to take the needle again and go over the first and under the second one. And like I said, you can go under both of them, you can go over both of them. It does not matter. It's whatever your aesthetic is. All right, so I'm doing that, and then I'm going to come underneath both of these threads right here, like that. And then when I come back, I'm going to sew over the first and under the second thread, just like that, you see? And go right back in the hole here. And so when I go in there, let's see, here we are. There we go. See that? Going right back in, right through, and come out here. I want to make sure that I like this to be parallel, so I always make sure that all these X's, the 2 threads are parallel in them. And then here's my last one. Pull it taut just a little bit, remember in the direction that you're sewing, and then right to left underneath the loop, and left to right underneath the loop, and then 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and cut. Okay, so let me ask you this question. Where would you like to see me go with this? I can connect this signature up and show you how the X's connect together, or I could just sew on 2 more signatures right here like I just did. Anybody have a preference for that? Put it in the chat. Kara will let me know, and I'll make the decision. Okay. Who else? Anyone else? Because if I went too fast on that first one, I just want to know if anyone wants to see that again, even though connecting them up is going to be pretty close to the same thing. What are we doing, Kara? Keep going. Okay. All right. Now we're going to add the third signature. Well, I don't think I have any examples. We used to sew, I'm looking behind me right now. We used to sew them just in 2 rows. It took less time. So it costs us less in labor. But ultimately, I like the connected stitch better, so we just started doing that. Okay, this time, 2 threads right there from the inside out, and here's all of your thread right here, the 1 thread, and then just pull them through and make sure they're the same size, or pretty close. And we're going to lay this down. And now you see how we have our threads coming out here? We're in relation to the holes right there. We're going to take the top one and we're going to put it through that top hole, just like that. Okay, that's all we're going to do with that one. We're going to take the bottom one and we're going to put it through. See this hole right here? Y'all got that? It's the 1, 2, the 3rd hole down, and we're just putting it through the leather. We're not going to go through the paper at all. We don't need to. And we're going to pull that through on the other side, just like that. Okay, so here's how this looks. You've got one here, and you've got one here on top. Okay, we're going to take the top one now, and we're going to go through that 2nd hole into the paper. Just like that. So it's going to come out right there, and then we'll pull that taut. You see how it's loose on the inside like that? Can you see how that's all like floppy and loose? We're going to pull that taut. And the first thing we do to do that is pull on this one. So we get that nice and taut right there. Now it's all that slack on that first one's taken up. And we're going to drop down to the 2nd hole and push it through the paper and the leather. So it's going to go from there to the corresponding hole outside. And now, pardon me?
You were getting too close to yourself when you went in.
Oh, okay. Did everybody get that? Should I take it apart and do it again?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So here we are. We've got our threads right here, and I'm going to stay on this thread, and I'm going to hook this little fork up on top, underneath there, and bam, right there. And then I'm going to come back through the hole, through the paper, there. See that? It's going from here, from right here, into the paper right here, and get it all parallel. See that? There's my X. And then I'm going to drop down one hole right there, and see, there it is, right through there. I pull that, pull it taut, and now I don't need that thread anymore. I'm going to take the other one and go over this first thread, under the 2nd, hook around the little fork there, pull that taut, always pulling in the direction that I'm going. And then I'm going to go over and under that thread, and see how I've got that X? Now I'm going to come back in this hole, and I'm not going to go through the paper. I'm just going to go through the leather. So see that? Push that in. See how I'm just coming through the leather there? Just coming through the leather, not the paper. It's just the leather. And I'm going to, because this is already sewn, we don't need to go through that again. And get it nice and parallel, which is what I like. And then I'm going to go down one more hole on the outside. There, come through here, and hook around these two underneath both of those threads like that, and then just come back down and go back into that hole right there. And there I have it. So I'll drop down one more hole because I could still do something with this needle. And see, there I am. And that's it. That's for that. Now I'm going to pick up the other thread and go underneath the first thread and over the first and under the 2nd, Now I'm going to do this on purpose here because I want to show you this. See how that thread gets hooked on the book sometimes? Right there?
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. So you just got to be aware of it. Don't start yanking on your thread and trying to pull it through the book. Just release it from the edge. And this happens, it just happens when you sew the book. You just got to deal with it. Okay, so I went over the first thread and under the second. Now I'm going to hook these two right here. Not these two. Don't do this unless you want to. Just the one right here, the one you're working with, because we're working with this X right here. You go under there, pull that taut, and then over the first thread and under the second. And now we're going to go back into the hole here with the paper because this hasn't been sewn yet. Do you see how I peek? I'm looking for my hole there. It's really a lot easier. So you see when I hold my book, I've got control on either side with my fingers. And even when I sew fast, if you watch how I'm sewing, you'll see that I try to control it on both sides. So there we are. Now I'm going to drop this down one more hole right there, through there, and I can hook this right here because that's available. So I'm going to keep working with this thread, pull that taut. Did you see how I pulled that in the direction I'm going? And then in the hole there and out through the paper. Make sure it's parallel if that's what you want. And then go down to the next hole. See, now there's nothing more for me to do. I don't have an X there I can hook onto yet, so I can't do anything with this thread. Now I'll go to the next one, and I'll position my fingers and hand so I can access the inner part, which is where we're going to be sewing or putting this needle. Over the first and under the second thread, hooking both of those right there, that, and then over the first and under the second there, and then back into the leather only. You see that? Just the leather. This signature is already sewn. We don't need to sew it again. So we just go in the leather like that and make sure we're all parallel, and then drop down to the next hole there, and we have something we can hook onto here on both those threads. Pull that through and come back down into the same hole and go back through again. And we could drop down here. And now we're done with this thread. We got nothing else to do. You see how that's coming out inside there? How the threads are just laying down there? I don't know if you could see that. It's kind of, what? Only once what, Rachel?
We're talking about how many times we stab ourselves in each stitching session.
Oh.
He said
So,
she only
check this out.
stabs herself once,
Check out this
and
needle.
I said only once.
You're using the wrong needles.
At
Go-
least once.
Go in our supplier list and look at the needles we use. Check this out. See that? I don't know if you can see how far
Tapestry
it's...
needle.
Yes, it's a tapestry needle. It's not going to poke...
I would still stab myself.
Yeah, but it wouldn't hurt if you it won't hurt then if you're using a tapestry needle. Okay, so here we are. Now we can go over this one and under the second thread there. We can hook these two, and come back down over the first thread under the second and go back inside right there. And so now I'm looking for the hole there. And let's see, there we go. And then let's just make sure my stitch is parallel right there like it is. And then go back down to the next hole, and we still have stuff we can do with this needle and thread. So we'll hook those two again like that. You see how it's turning out? They're all connecting. And we'll have time, actually we won't. This will be the last signature I do because it's noon already. So we're going to lengthen out these workshops to 45 minutes so we can spend more time. And there that is. And then I'll drop it down the next hole right there, like that, and push it through. You notice how I'm holding the book upside down now? Because as I get closer to here, things become easier to control, you know, if I hold it upside down. So that's why I'm holding this book upside down right now, rather than working on it like this. But I'll work both ways. It's just how you gotta be able to work with your book when you sew it. And once you sew, I mean, all it really takes is about sewing up 4 books like this, and then you're like an expert almost. You'll be handling the book and doing it'll become a lot easier for you. So once again, over and under those threads, through here, both of those, grab them both like that, and then back in here. You should be doing this upside down. There, like that. Oopsie. Is that what I wanted to do? Oh, it doesn't matter. So what? So here, this is great. I made a mistake, but it's not, but not really. I sewed. Oh, no, I didn't. I just didn't even hear talking. Take that apart. I'm so glad I did that, because then you guys can see what happens, what a mistake looks like, and be confident that I make them too. When I gab too much, I guess. Okay, so here we are. Now we're going to go over the first and under the second thread, and we're just going to come back here over there like that. Hope you all got that, saw how I fixed that little error. I had to take the needle out off the thread. I'm going to drop down one more hole there, and then I could still hook around this X there, and go back in the leather there, make sure my stitch is parallel, and then drop down one more to the next hole. There's nothing to do there, so I'm going to pick up this thread over and under, and then hooking those 2 threads like that, and then over and under like that, and then back into this section here, this hole right there, and that's parallel. Then drop down to the last one where I can hook those 2 and go back in here like this. Make sure that's parallel, and then tie this off, right to left, left to right. If you want to do it the opposite way, that's totally fine. If you have another way, then tell me about it, because I'd be interested to know, especially if it's a better way. Okay. Last stitch right here. Over the first, thread under the second. Hook both of those over the first, under the second, and back into the leather like that. Make sure it's parallel there, and then same deal. Not there, not there, and then 1, 2, and 3. That. I'll clip that, and that's what we've done today. These right here, like that. So, any questions on that? And I could sew this up and ship it to Christina during the week, but do you want to see me sew up these 3 signatures next week? Or
No.
or not?
No.
Think you got it? No? Okay. All right, good. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Uh-huh.
Last week I showed you a book I was working on. Now I need some suggestions. This is my buffalo one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the stitching. So what I want to do is get some kind of a cord or something that I can wrap around and fasten on this button somehow. So I
Okay.
can keep it shut.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Let's do that next week. Let's work on a flap closure
Oh, great.
with a button.
Good, good.
Yeah, and I'll
Yeah,
show you. And so you know what? I'll show. That'll be a prelude to. Oh, hold on. Oh yeah, you can see it. You see this stitch right here?
Right.
That'll we'll show you how to do that, and then just wrap your cord around the button with that. How does
Oh,
it?
perfect. Yeah, because
Ooh.
that's all I need to
Mm.
finish that one is that.
Yeah, let's do that next week. So that's exactly what we'll do. And this
Great.
book is really cool. So this is look at the personalization on that. We put a patch
Oh,
on
wow.
it, a Canadian baker.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
Cool.
And then they had
Um,
this is Sahara Nights leather on the inside,
Mhm.
and then the brown on the flight jacket on the outside. This is a way cool book. This is getting shipped today. And then this is the Frankfurt cream paper. So here, compared to the Arch, can you see the difference in the color in the paper?
Right.
yeah.
And then this is the Frankfurt paper. It has a harder plated finish, so it's actually better for fountain pens and really super fine lines. If you got a really thin nib on your pen, it's great for that. Both of these papers, the Frankfurt and the Arch, they take watercolors wonderfully, and it was a bit surprising when Sheldon started drawing on these. He didn't think that this paper, the Frankfurt paper, would, but it does. It's really great for watercolors. So, any other questions?
The red journal, have you done anything on the leather?
What on this book?
No, the red one that we're making.
Yeah, I just kind of went like this on it, you know. So,
Yeah, that book is beautiful.
isn't
It looks
it?
very smooth.
Well, it's got some texture. I mean, the leather's got a lot of texture to it, and color depth. I don't know how that comes across on here, but it really does. When I'll photograph it and I'll post it for everybody. Like I said, I'll probably finish sewing the other 3 sections on it, and then I'll photograph it, and I'll use that as the thumbnail for the video replay on here. Then you'll be able to see more of the texture in it, because this leather does have texture. Actually, Kara, can you run and grab a scrap piece of red of the crimson and make sure it's not been textured at all? And I'll show you what we do to the leather before we laminate it.
Oh, while she's doing that, I have a question.
Yep.
You're going to expand to 45 minutes. Are you going to start 15 minutes earlier or go 15 minutes later?
Oh, that's a good question. We'll go, yeah. You guys are so practical. We're going to go 15 minutes later.
I think we go later anyway.
Yeah, because we always go later, right? I know.
I gotta go with Wayne.
I know. Hey, okay, so check it out. This is from a hide. You see how different how darker the one is than the other? It's just because this is how the leather is. It's just a natural product. So I'm going to take the darker one, and what I do is this. I grab it like this, and I just go, wind it up a little like this. And you could do that. You could be as aggressive or as non-aggressive as you like. But do you see the difference now on that?
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to get really aggressive, I can wring it out like that, like you would a chamois or something, and check that out. And then I put it on the table and I rub my hand over it some, and that's what you have. So on the lighter, it works the same way. See that? And then as you rub it with your hand, watch this. It'll come back to darker, but still have some color depth to it. See that? So that's our leathers. That's called pull-up in a leather. When you fold it and it gets lighter at the fold, it's called pull-up. It's pretty cool. It's usually found in the chrome/oil tan leathers. So, any other questions? All right. We'll see you guys next week. We're going to cover that closure. If you have any closure questions, let me show you one more thing here. check this out. So the way we get rounded things is we have all kinds of round templates, all these different sizes, like even big ones. So because we've been doing it for so long, we've just collected all these things, these different sizes of stuff. So they're all, perfectly rounded. And then, we have stuff like this for closures that we've made. We have little guides for punching holes like that. We have, here's a couple templates too. We've got here's oh gosh, this is, yeah, this is for our Nemesis. What's that doing in here unless we made a new template to put our buckles on and stuff in the strap. Here's a small 120-page journal, 3 signature with this kind of closure on it. Here's my calculations for figuring out stuff. All kinds of things that we have in here. And so that you just start accumulating all these things as you work from project to project. And then what happens is once you've done a bunch of stuff and now you're starting something new, you have all these templates to pull from, and it speeds up the whole process of creating something, because you'll have other templates to pull from, and we have like a ton of them. So yeah. Okay, if there's no questions.
Slows down the process while you're trying to find the right one.
Well, there's that too. Okay. Yes,
I
we
got
do
a bunch of stuff in my apartment too.
we do look for stuff, and then we spend time finding it. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us this week. We will see you next week where we're going to do closures. And in the meantime, have a great week. If you need us to sew anything for you, like on the edge, just let us know. Shoot us an email ahead of time, and then we'll tell you where to send it, and we can figure out, you can tell us what you want done on it. The sewing services are free. All you do is pay postage. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.